It was 2:13 p.m. when I heard my wife laugh from the basement. That might not sound like much, but I work from home, and she was supposed to be at her dentist appointment. I remember the exact time because I was in the middle of a video call with a client, and her laugh cut straight through the floorboards, sharp and familiar. A laugh I hadn't heard in weeks. Not around me, anyway. I muted my mic, sat still. She didn't know I was upstairs. My meeting had been moved last minute, and I never told her. I even parked down the street earlier that morning because the neighbors were having their driveway redone. None of that was planned. None of that was supposed to happen. But it did. And that's the only reason I heard the joke. I crept down the hallway, careful not to make a sound. The basement door was cracked just an inch, and beyond it, I could hear her voice echoing against the concrete walls of the laundry room. She was on speakerphone with someone. A man. They were joking, teasing each other. And then she said it. I swear, if my husband ever finds out, I'll just say it was a joke. He's too soft to do anything anyway. The man chuckled. You're evil. No, she giggled. I'm strategic. He thinks I'm folding laundry right now. Meanwhile, I'm folding you into my schedule. They both laughed, and something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked, like a windshield hit by a stone, spreading slowly outward until the whole thing gives way. I didn't go down. I didn't scream. I didn't slam the door open. I just stood there, heart pounding in my throat, wondering how long it had been going on. She'd always told me I was too sensitive, that I read into things, that I made drama out of nothing. And God help me, I believed her. Every single time. Until that moment. I went back to my office, sat through the rest of the meeting like nothing happened, even smiled at the end. Then I opened my old laptop, the one she didn't know I still had, and started digging. Emails, passwords, photo backups, cloud syncs. She must have forgotten her phone was once connected to that machine. Or maybe she thought I'd wiped it. Either way, what I found, it wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. Just like she said. She'd planned every detail. Her work schedule, my meetings, her girl nights, her dentist appointments, her gym visits. Every lie was layered over another, like she enjoyed the thrill of hiding in plain sight. And that joke? That one joke. It was the thread that unraveled everything. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even move from my office chair. While she snored softly in our bedroom upstairs, peaceful, like nothing had happened, I sat in the dark with the blue glow of my old laptop lighting up a decade of lies I'd never noticed. It turns out, syncing your phone to a cloud years ago and forgetting to disconnect it is the kind of mistake only careless people make. And she'd gotten careless. First, it was the photos. They weren't scandalous, not at first. Just little things. A picture of a wine glass across from another, in a restaurant I'd never been to. A mirror selfie where she wore that green silk top she told me she returned. A hotel lobby I didn't recognize, time-stamped 2 weeks after she claimed to be visiting her sister. That one hit me the hardest. Because I remember that week. I remember her crying on the phone when she said her sister was going through something and didn't want company. And I remember believing her like an idiot. Then I found the Notes app. Dozens of entries. Some were shopping lists. Some were calendar reminders. But tucked between those were what looked like scripts. Written lines. Phrases like, if he asks, say it was for Shelby's birthday. Don't forget, Jason equals Monday gym excuse. Say it was an old pic. Smile when you say it. It was like watching her rehearse the role of loyal wife. And I was just her gullible audience. But what crushed me most wasn't the cheating. I mean, of course it hurt, but it wasn't even the worst part. No, what shattered me was realizing how much thought she'd put into covering it all. She wasn't sloppy. She was smart. Methodical. She knew what she was doing. And that meant every time she called me paranoid. Every time she rolled her eyes and made me feel stupid for asking questions. It wasn't annoyance. It was strategy. She was neutralizing me. I kept scrolling through backups I didn't even remember setting up. Then I found the voice memos. She recorded him. Not on purpose. Just accidentally. She must have hit record instead of a timer one night. The file was only 5 minutes long. But it was enough. His voice was calm. Familiar. Too familiar. Ben. Ben from her work. The one I shook hands with at the Christmas party. The one who gave me grilling tips while she poured wine and looked at him like he'd invented oxygen. The one she said was like a brother. His voice on that recording wasn't brotherly. It was smug. He doesn't suspect anything? No, she said. He's too busy trying to be perfect all the time. It's actually kind of sad. Guess we'll keep giving him reasons to try harder. They both laughed. I stared at the wall for an hour after hearing that. Not crying. Just stuck. You ever feel so betrayed you go numb? Like your body can't figure out how to respond? That was me. By morning, I knew I couldn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted her to dig deeper. To feel safe. To get comfortable. Because if she thought I was still the fool in the dark, maybe, just maybe, I could finally get the whole truth. And I was done living without it. I acted normal the next day. Forced smiles, casual questions, light touches in the hallway like nothing had changed. I even made her coffee the way she liked it. Almond milk, half a packet of stevia, no foam. She sipped it and kissed me on the cheek like I was the luckiest man alive. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop hearing her voice saying, "He's too busy trying to be perfect. It's actually kind of sad." Those words dug into me like splinters under skin, and I couldn't pull them out. That morning, I called in sick. Told my boss I had food poisoning. I had no intention of working. I needed time. I needed space. I needed to become someone else, someone quiet, observant, not the clingy, soft husband she thought she could keep lying to. I wasn't going to confront her with rage. I was going to make her walk herself into the trap. I installed a keylogger on her laptop. Not the work one, but the personal one she used for online shopping, Netflix, Instagram. She was careless with passwords and lazy with logins. Within hours, I was getting screenshots sent to my email of everything she typed. By noon, I knew the names of 2 more guys she was chatting with. By 2 p.m., I knew one of them wasn't even from work. He was someone she met at her friend's wedding 6 months ago in Colorado. She told me the trip was boring. Turns out it was a little too exciting. But then something new happened. Something I hadn't expected. At exactly 5:46 p.m., I saw her type, "He's been acting a little strange lately. I think he suspects something." That message hit me harder than I thought it would. It meant she was already starting to doubt me. I couldn't afford to be sloppy, not even once. So, that night, I staged a small breakdown. I sat on the edge of the bed after dinner and stared at the floor until she noticed. "What's wrong?" she asked, sounding annoyed more than concerned. "I don't know," I said, voice cracking on purpose. "I just feel like we're drifting. Like I'm not enough for you anymore." She didn't hug me. She didn't even move closer. She just let out a tired sigh and said, "You always get like this when you're stressed. It's in your head." I nodded. Let her believe she still had control. But I watched her body language, her impatience, her subtle way of looking at her phone like she was waiting for someone else to text her. Not me. Never me. The next day, I went further. I signed up for a background check service using the usernames I found in her messages. And I hit a nerve I didn't expect. One of the guys, Caleb W., wasn't just some random fling. He had a criminal record. Not huge, but shady enough. Fraud. Identity theft. Some sealed juvenile stuff. The guy wasn't just a mistake. He was dangerous. And she'd been texting him things like, "We just need the timing to be right. And he'll never see it coming if we keep playing our roles." That stopped me cold. What timing? What roles? Was this more than cheating? I scrolled through every word, every emoji, every deleted message I could recover. Patterns started forming. Mentions of bank accounts. Talk of passwords. My name. My schedule. My habits. That's when the fears set in. This wasn't about lust anymore. It was a plan. And I was in the middle of it without even knowing what the end looked like. The worst part about pretending everything is fine is how easy it is to get good at it. I woke up next to her the morning after discovering her messages about roles and timing, and she was humming to herself in the shower like nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, I was lying there thinking about how many nights I had spent curled next to a woman who might have been setting me up for something more than just a broken heart. I couldn't even let myself panic. Panic would get me sloppy. I needed to move slowly, methodically, like her. I spent the next day quietly locking things down. Changed all my banking passwords. Set up multi-factor authentication. Removed myself from any joint accounts I could without raising suspicion. I even backed up all the security footage from our doorbell cam and uploaded it to an external drive she didn't know existed. If she was planning something, anything, I wasn't going to make it easy. And God help me, I wasn't going to be caught asleep. That night, while she was texting in bed next to me, I fake dozed off and watched her reflection in the dark TV screen. She was smiling while she typed. Then she deleted the message and retyped it, making it sound more innocent. Like she was editing the lie in real time. Eventually she locked her phone, slid closer, and whispered, "You've been sweet lately. I missed this version of you." I nearly vomited right there. Instead, I muttered, "Yeah, just trying to be better." She kissed my shoulder. I flinched. I don't think she noticed. The next day, I drove to my brother Curtis' house 2 hours away under the excuse of a last-minute work errand. I told her I'd be back late. I told Curtis everything. He's the only one who's never judged me for being a little over-emotional. I'm the soft brother, the emotional one. Growing up, everyone joked I was the heart, and he was the backbone. That day, I needed both. He didn't say much while I explained. He just sat there, silent, listening. Then he leaned forward, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You need to stop treating this like a betrayal. This is a setup." That word, setup, it stayed with me the whole drive back. When I got home, she was already in bed. I kissed her forehead and said nothing. I barely slept. The next morning, everything changed. I opened her laptop, not to spy, but because I needed to transfer some photos I had stored on our shared drive. She had left her Gmail logged in. And sitting right there in her inbox, with no password required, was an email thread between her and a law firm. Not a divorce lawyer. No, this was darker. The subject line read, "Transfer strategy, prepared documents." The attachments were PDFs, power of attorney, account statements. A document titled Separation of Assets, suggested division. What stunned me most was that it was already signed. Digitally. Not by her, by me. She had forged my signature. Every nerve in my body lit up. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't cheating. This wasn't even theft. This was premeditated erasure. She was planning to gut me financially and vanish with the help of someone she clearly trusted. A man she was texting in secret, whose record included fraud. And I was just the passive, clueless husband people would assume had driven her away. The soft guy. The one who must have done something wrong. And still, I didn't confront her. Because now I needed to know just how far she was willing to go. So I started writing my own script. By the end of that week, I knew I was sitting on a ticking bomb, and the person who lit the fuse was sleeping 3 feet away from me every night. She still acted normal, laughing, touching my arm during dinner, asking about my day like she hadn't digitally signed my name on financial documents I'd never seen. I couldn't fake sleep anymore. I couldn't fake anything. So I stopped pretending, but I didn't explode. I went silent, quiet, calculated. Like her, I started by booking an appointment with a lawyer. Not the kind she expected. This one was a forensic specialist in digital fraud and identity theft. He listened without blinking. When I showed him the fake signature, he told me one thing that stuck in my head more than anything else that day. If she's already moved your name onto paperwork without consent, she's probably already moved your money, too. That scared me more than I let show. Sure enough, when I checked the investment account I barely looked at, my grandfather's life savings rolled into a long-term fund under my name. I found a recent withdrawal request. The paperwork had my forged signature again. The email listed wasn't mine. It was hers, using a variant of my name at a throwaway domain. She wasn't planning to leave. She was planning to replace me. But here's where it gets weird. That same day, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs on a call. It buzzed once. Then again. I looked. Same number. No name. The preview of the message chilled me. "We need to pause everything. Something's wrong. I think he knows." Seconds later, the message deleted itself. I wasn't fast enough to screenshot it, but the damage was done. She was unraveling. Cracks were forming in her script. That night, I gave her the performance of my life. I cooked dinner. I opened wine. I sat across from her and told her I'd been thinking about renewing our vows. She blinked like I'd slapped her. "You want to what?" she asked, stunned. "I feel like I haven't appreciated you enough," I said, watching her eyes. "We've both been busy. We drifted. I want to come back to you. Start over. Clean slate." I could see her panic, but she forced a smile. Told me that was sweet. She didn't even touch her wine. The next morning, she asked me casually what my schedule looked like that week. I lied, of course. Told her I had an all-day strategy meeting on Friday and a 2-day conference the weekend after. She smiled a little too easily and said, "Perfect. I might go visit my sister again while you're busy." Perfect. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. But while she thought I'd be gone Friday, I was across the street in Curtis's car with binoculars and a borrowed telephoto lens. My brother's idea. If she's trying to disappear you on paper, he said. You better make sure she doesn't try anything worse. At 1:06 p.m., a black car pulled into our driveway. She walked out wearing the same green coat she wore the day she said she was grocery shopping for meal prep. She wasn't carrying groceries this time. The driver got out. He wasn't Ben. It was someone older, mid-40s, sunglasses, long coat. She kissed him. It lasted longer than it should have. They walked inside together. Curtis said nothing, just handed me the camera. I started taking pictures. Every step of her lie, every piece of her destruction. But the real twist didn't come until they came out 2 hours later. He was holding a manila envelope. She was crying. Not softly, frantically. She grabbed his arm. He pulled away. Whatever this was, it wasn't love. And it wasn't just cheating. This was a business deal. One that just went very, very wrong. I don't know what I expected when I saw her crying in that man's arms. But I'll tell you what I didn't expect. Relief. I thought I'd feel rage, betrayal, maybe even some twisted kind of heartbreak. But I just felt done. There's something freeing about watching a lie collapse under its own weight. You stop needing to ask why. You start focusing on how to finish the story without letting it destroy you. After the mystery man drove off with that envelope, she stood on the porch for a long time. I could tell she didn't want to come back inside. Her hands were shaking. She kept checking her phone. Eventually, she did something I'll never forget. She sat down on the porch step and just stared at nothing. For 15 full minutes. And in that moment, I realized something that shifted everything in my head. She wasn't in control anymore. That night, I said nothing. Let her tell me some rushed lie about her sister canceling last minute and being too tired to drive up anyway. I just nodded and said I was glad she stayed home. She looked at me like she was trying to read a language she no longer understood. Her walls were up, but they were cracking. By Monday morning, the keyloggers started picking up something new, searches. Desperate ones. Things like penalty for forging signature on legal docs. Can deleted emails be recovered? Signs your husband is hiding something. She was spiraling. She had no idea I was already miles ahead. But then came the message that made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't from Ben, or the man in the car. It was from someone new. A burner address. One line, no punctuation. You weren't supposed to keep copies. That's when I knew this wasn't just her mess anymore. She was involved with people who expected silence, compliance, maybe even vanishing acts. The kind that happened quietly, without fuss, and leave nothing behind but confused neighbors and an empty mailbox. I copied every file, every photo, every message, stored them on cloud servers, external drives, printed backups in sealed envelopes. One to my lawyer, one to Curtis, one hidden in my office under a false panel in the wall. Paranoia became protocol. 2 days later, I pretended to go to work early. Instead, I stayed in town, tracking her movements from my car. At exactly 10:12 a.m., she drove to a rundown strip mall on the edge of town and met someone near the old laundromat. Not the man from before. This time it was a woman. Short, blonde, nervous. They sat in her car for 20 minutes. When Carla got out, she was pale, shaking again. I had to know what was said. So I did something I'm not proud of. I broke into her car that night while she was in the shower. Not to steal, just to check. In the glove box was a folded piece of paper. Handwritten. Sloppy. It looked like a rushed draft of something. But one line stood out immediately. If he talks, we both go down. The documents were never supposed to resurface. So it was true. There was more than just infidelity. There was fraud. Maybe worse. She'd gotten in deep, and now she was dragging me along as her insurance policy. That's when I made the final decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to scream, accuse, demand answers. No, I was going to leave her with something she couldn't erase, couldn't control, and couldn't spin into a harmless joke. Because she wanted me erased quietly. So I decided to disappear loudly. The plan was never to vanish forever. It was to make her think I had. Make her feel the weight of what she'd built. Every forged paper, every lie, every smug laugh behind my back. While suddenly having no control over the outcome. Because that's what she feared most. Losing control of the story. The morning I left, I didn't pack bags. I didn't make a scene. I didn't write some dramatic letter. I just turned off location tracking on my phone, left my wallet in the drawer, and walked out with nothing but a prepaid debit card, a go bag I'd built over the past 2 weeks, and the flash drive Curtis had helped me compile with every piece of evidence, labeled and time-stamped, stored in triplicate. One copy already in my lawyer's hands. Another scheduled to send to her employer if anything happened to me. The third? That one was with me. I didn't check into a hotel. That would be too easy to trace. Instead, I stayed at a short-term sublet under Curtis's name. Small, anonymous, cash paid. No cameras. No questions. That first night was the first time I'd slept more than 2 hours in over a month. I turned off my phone. Within 12 hours, she lost her mind. Curtis forwarded the first wave of messages she sent him. Where is he? His car is gone, but nothing else. Have you talked to him? Please, this isn't funny. I need to talk to him right now. It's important. Then came the calls. Not just to him. She called my mom, my boss, my friends, even the landlord. She started crafting a story. Said I was having a mental breakdown. Said I'd been acting weird. Said I might have done something reckless. It was her classic move. Control the narrative first, drown out the truth with sympathy. But then, the real panic started. Because that night, I sent her an email. No subject line. No message body. Just an attachment titled, Joke's Over. Inside, a PDF with side-by-side comparisons of her forged signature next to my legal one. Voice memo transcripts. Screenshots of her burner email account. And at the bottom, one sentence in bold. You have 72 hours to come clean before I make this public. No threats. No theatrics. Just truth. Her response came exactly 9 minutes later. A single line. Where are you? Please don't do this. I didn't reply. Within hours, she started spiraling in ways I didn't anticipate. Curtis caught wind that she showed up at my workplace crying. Told them I was in danger. Cops were called. Wellness check requested. I had to call my lawyer to make sure they knew this wasn't a missing person situation. This was a cleanup act by someone watching her whole empire collapse. The third day, I checked the account where she'd tried to funnel my investments. It was frozen. Her forged power of attorney was flagged. Legal action was pending. She must have gotten the notice around the same time, because I received another message from her burner account, this time much colder. You think you've won, but you've only made things worse. For both of us. That confirmed what I'd suspected all along. This wasn't just about me. There were others involved. People above her. Or beside her. Whoever that man was with the envelope, whatever was in it, it wasn't over. But here's what she didn't know. I had one final piece left. One domino she didn't even realize she'd knocked over yet. Because that harmless joke she made, the one where she laughed and said I'd never do anything, that I was too soft, was recorded. Not by me. By the company hosting the retreat. They'd filmed the whole talent night for an internal team highlight reel. And I'd gotten my hands on a copy through a contact in their media department. Her mic? Still hot when she whispered to someone behind the curtain. If he finds out, I'll just cry and say it was all a joke. Works every time. It wasn't a joke anymore. It was leverage. I didn't destroy her. I could have. Every file I had, every recording, every forged signature, every name she tried to bury, they were all sitting in a neat little archive, ready to be sent with one click. But I didn't want to become a monster just because I was treated like one. I just wanted freedom. Truth. A future that didn't revolve around fear or pretending to be someone softer, dumber, quieter than I really was. 3 days after the deadline, my lawyer received a formal confession from her legal representative. She'd admitted to certain misjudgments in trust, consent, and asset management. It was vague, legally padded, but enough for the banks to unfreeze my name and return control of everything she'd tried to reroute. The forged documents were declared invalid. Her lawyer, probably realizing who she was really dealing with, negotiated a quiet separation. She got nothing but her car, her clothes, and whatever dignity she could still pretend to have. She never fought it, never pushed back. I think she realized the moment I went silent, she had already lost. A month later, I moved out of state. Somewhere small, warm, where people still wave to you on the sidewalk. I started working for a local nonprofit, quiet hours, real people, nothing fake. I rented a little cottage near a lake and started over. No noise. No masks. Just peace. Curtis visited me last weekend. We grilled, laughed, talked about everything and nothing. At one point, he asked me if I'd heard from her since the settlement was finalized. I hadn't, but I'd seen her name pop up online. One of those vague, tearful apology posts people write when they need sympathy, but not accountability. It had 1,000 likes and comments. Not one mention of my name. Just how life had fallen apart suddenly. That's fine. Let her have the story she needs. I'm living mine now. Last week, I met someone, unexpected, unplanned. She dropped her groceries in the parking lot outside the market, and I helped pick them up. Simple. No games. We talked about peaches and rain and laughed about nothing. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something better. It was real. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the punchline in someone else's joke. I said I didn't want to talk right now, Meryl. That was the first thing she screamed as the knife was still halfway through the cake I bought for myself. The frosting even had my name on it, poorly spelled, by the way, because I ordered it last minute from the gas station bakery. Happy birthday, Meryl. Close enough, right? I just stared at her, still holding the cake box with one hand, the plastic knife with the other, while she stood 10 feet away, barefoot, arms crossed like I was the one ruining the night. I didn't even say anything before that. I literally hadn't said a single word. I walked into the house holding the cake, saw her on the couch in pajamas, not the cute kind, the I've given up on trying kind, and I smiled. That's all I did. I smiled. And she lashed out like I'd shown up drunk with a clown costume and a marching band. That's when I knew something was off. No, that's when I finally admitted it to myself. I set the cake down gently on the counter. My hands were shaking a little, not from fear, just confusion. I asked her calmly, did I do something? She didn't answer. She just picked up her phone again, scrolling like I wasn't even there. I was half tempted to ask Siri what I did wrong. The air felt like soup. Thick. Heavy. And when she finally looked up again, she didn't say happy birthday. She didn't even say my name. She said, why are you always home? I blinked. What does that even mean? I work remotely. That's not a secret. It's not new. I've done it for 3 years. She was the one who used to love that I could make lunch, fold laundry, be around for errands. But now, apparently, my presence was a problem. You know, she added, not even blinking. Maybe if you had more ambition, I wouldn't feel so. Trapped. Trapped. That word hung in the room like smoke. I started to feel like I was the villain in her story and somehow missed the whole first act. She kept going. You're just there? All the time. Staring. Smiling. Waiting for affection like a puppy. It's draining. And then she said something that felt like a slap. This whole marriage feels like obligation frosting on a stale cake. I looked down at the actual cake. The one I bought for myself. It suddenly didn't look so appetizing. I should have walked out right then. But I didn't. Because then came the shift. She stepped closer, like nothing had happened. Her face changed. Her voice turned soft, like someone flipping a light switch. She reached out, touched my arm gently, and said, wait, I didn't mean that. Meryl, I love you. Just like that. As if all those words could be erased with a gentle touch and 3 syllables. But my eyes were already looking past her. At the unlocked phone on the couch. The one that lit up with a message preview. From someone named Colby. The message said, tonight, tell him it's another meltdown. And suddenly, everything, the mood swings, the bitterness, the fake apologies, made sense. Too much sense. I couldn't breathe. You know that sharp, quiet second when your heart knows something before your brain is ready to accept it? That was me, standing in the middle of my own kitchen, half a cake on the counter, and a stranger's name glowing from my wife's phone. Colby. Who the hell was Colby? And more importantly, what meltdown? She didn't see me glance at it. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care anymore. That's the part one still can't figure out. I used to think we were partners, married, bonded, ride or die, and all that garbage. But now, I felt like an inconvenient roommate who just so happened to pay the mortgage on time. I took a deep breath and asked, casually, who's Colby? She didn't even flinch. She actually had the audacity to laugh a little and say, oh my God, relax. He's just a guy from my Pilates group. We all have a group chat, Meryl. Don't be weird. Weird? Weird? I wasn't the one getting texts at 8:43 p.m. on my husband's birthday about pretending to have a meltdown. I wanted to scream, but instead I did what I always do. I folded in on myself. I shut up. I nodded. I pretended like her words didn't just slice something vital open inside me. Because I didn't want to fight on my birthday. That was the excuse I gave myself. Again. But then she said it. The sentence that made everything collapse in slow motion. You always read into things. That's why I can't talk to you anymore. That's when I knew. I knew I wasn't paranoid. I knew this wasn't about stress, or work, or me being clingy. It wasn't about me being home too much, or not exciting enough. It wasn't about the mismatched energy or the stale routine. It was about someone else. Someone named Colby. Someone who probably hadn't spent the past 4 birthdays cooking dinner and crying in the garage because his wife said she forgot it was today. Someone who probably hadn't stopped mid-laundry to surprise her with sushi and a card, only to be told, "I'm not hungry. Stop trying so hard." I wanted to ask again, to dig, to press, but I didn't get the chance, because her phone lit up again, this time with a photo preview. It was blurry, but it wasn't hard to figure out. 2 wine glasses, a hotel headboard, a guy's hand, definitely not mine, holding her wrist. And right there, in bold text, "Can't wait for Friday night." Same place? She turned fast when she saw my face. I wasn't even angry. I just looked empty. That scared her. Her smile fell. Her fake concern twisted back on like a mask. She said it again, almost on cue. "Wait, Meryl, I didn't mean what I said earlier. I love you. You know that, right? You do know that?" I didn't answer, because for the first time in years, I finally saw the truth. The real, unfiltered, undeniable truth. My marriage wasn't breaking. It was already broken. I just hadn't noticed the pieces lying everywhere until tonight. And what I did next, I didn't even know I was capable of it. I didn't sleep that night. She did. Of course she did. I heard her snoring in our bed like nothing had happened, as if she hadn't screamed at me over a cake, hadn't fumbled through a lie about a man named Colby, hadn't pretended to love me with that trembling voice she only used when caught. Me? I was on the couch, awake, staring at the ceiling like it owed me answers. Every time I blinked, I saw that photo again. 2 wine glasses, a hotel bed, her wrist in another man's hand. I memorized every pixel of that preview. Didn't even need to open it. I already knew the rest. And yet, somehow, I still wanted to be wrong. Around 2:30 in the morning, I got up. Quiet as possible. I crept into the bedroom, careful not to step on that creaky floorboard by the door. Her phone was charging on her side of the nightstand. I stared at it for a full minute before I reached down and picked it up. It wasn't locked. That was the worst part. She didn't even care enough to hide it anymore. That's how confident she was in my passiveness, in my silence, in the fact that I always forgave, always folded, always gave her the benefit of the doubt. The messages were all there. Colby wasn't from Pilates. He was real estate, commercial properties. She met him at some business seminar 2 months ago when I stayed home sick and told her to go without me. The texts were vivid, flirty, reckless. But the part that burned the deepest wasn't the emojis or the hotel confirmations or the "can't wait to touch you" nonsense. It was the way she talked about me. "Don't worry, he's harmless. He's like a puppy. He'll pout, then forget. He still thinks we can fix things. Poor guy. Poor guy." I sat on the edge of our bed while she slept 3 feet away, reading those words with trembling hands. My whole chest felt tight, like a scream was building but had nowhere to go. And then, like clockwork, she shifted in her sleep and mumbled, "Meryl?" I froze. She didn't open her eyes, just rolled over and sighed. And I whispered, barely audible, "Yeah, poor guy." I put the phone back. I walked out. Not of the house, not yet, but out of the bedroom, into the freezing garage, and just sat inside my car like it was a shelter from the tornado that had already hit. But here's the thing, I didn't cry. Not this time. I started planning. Because if she had plans for Friday night, then so did I. And mine didn't involve begging, or crying, or even confrontation. Mine involved silence. Because for the first time in my life, I wanted her to feel what it was like to be invisible. The next morning, I made her coffee. I don't even know why. Habit, maybe. Or maybe because I wanted to see if she'd say something. Anything. But she didn't. She walked into the kitchen, still rubbing sleep from her eyes, picked up the mug I made, and muttered a flat, "Thanks," before disappearing into the bathroom. That was it. No sorry about yesterday. No mention of the fight, the yelling, the gaslighting, the text from Colby. Nothing. Just a sip of coffee, and back to pretending the air wasn't thick with rot. She didn't even notice I hadn't slept. And I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Not because I didn't have the words. God knows I'd rehearsed them 100 times in my head. But because I wanted to see just how far she'd go pretending everything was fine. Spoiler. She went all the way. By Thursday, she was humming in the kitchen. Humming. I hadn't heard her hum in months. She even asked if I needed anything from the store when she went out for a mani-pedi. I said no. She smiled. smiled, like we were two newlyweds planning a weekend trip. But I knew where she was going Friday, and I knew who she'd be with. And I was done. That night, after she fell asleep again, a gift she seemed to enjoy more than honesty, I took out a single sheet of paper and wrote the first sentence without even thinking. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding in my ears, but the words came naturally, like they'd been waiting. This isn't a meltdown. It's the moment I finally stopped pretending you didn't break me. That was the first line of the note I never meant to leave. I didn't write it to guilt her. I didn't write it to win her back. I wrote it to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the coldness, the betrayal, the slow, suffocating emotional starvation that had been happening for months. By the time the letter was done, it didn't even sound like me. It sounded like a man who had finally woken up after being asleep at the wheel for too long. I folded it once, slid it into an envelope, and tucked it behind the second drawer in her vanity, where she hides the receipts she doesn't want me to see. And then I waited. Friday came. She wore makeup. Full makeup. Red lips. Winged eyeliner. The same perfume she used to wear back when she actually wanted to impress me. She spent almost 40 minutes picking earrings. When I asked, "Going somewhere special?" she actually had the nerve to smile and say, "Girls' night. You know how it is." I nodded. I smiled back. But when she walked out that door, heels clicking across our tile like a countdown to betrayal, she had no idea what was about to happen next. Because I wasn't going to follow her. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't even going to call. I was going to vanish. And for once, I wanted her to feel the silence. The second the front door closed behind her, I went to work. I already had the essentials packed. 2 bags, not big enough to seem like I was leaving forever, but not small enough to suggest I'd be back for dinner either. Clothes, documents, my laptop, my spare keys, and the one photo of us that didn't make me feel like an idiot for ever believing she cared. I didn't rush. That's the part one remember most. I didn't panic. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I moved slowly, like someone finally stepping out of a burning building after pretending the smoke wasn't real. The lease was in both our names, but the bills weren't. The bank account had already been separated 6 months ago, her idea for budgeting. At the time, I agreed. Thought it was mature. Thought it was responsible. I didn't realize then that she was preparing for a life without me. Well, now I was preparing too. I left her the house. She could have the couch she never wanted to cuddle on anymore. She could keep the kitchen she stopped cooking in, the bed she turned her back to me in, the front porch she used to sit on with wine and laughter before the silence took over. What I took was mine. The rest she could sort through later, when the echo of her own choices got loud enough to finally bother her. But before I left, I did one thing that, looking back, I still don't regret. I unplugged the Wi-Fi router. Then I turned off her phone's auto-log into our cloud storage. And finally, I removed my access to the shared calendar, the one she used to schedule her fake girls' nights and self-care weekends. I didn't erase anything. I didn't expose anything. I just disconnected. Let her figure out what it feels like to open a door and realize the air doesn't recognize her anymore. By the time I backed my car out of the driveway, it was just after 9 p.m. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I drove for 2 hours with the music off, windows cracked, and every breath feeling lighter than the last. She didn't even text. Not that night. Not the next morning. But on Sunday, that's when the calls started. Blocked number. Then another. Then her number. 12 voicemails by noon. And the first one was exactly what I expected. "Meryl, are you seriously doing this? Is this some kind of joke? Where are you?" No apology. Just confusion. Annoyance. Then panic. She hadn't found the letter yet. I knew that. If she had, the tone would have changed. But she would. Eventually. And when she did, she'd know. She wasn't the only one who could disappear. By the third day, her voicemails stopped sounding angry. The first few had fire. Accusations. "So this is how you handle things? You vanish? What kind of man runs away without a word?" Like she hadn't spent the last 6 months erasing me one eye roll at a time. But as the hours passed and I stayed silent, something started to shift in her voice. She wasn't mad anymore. She was scared. I listened to every message. Not because I wanted to hear her suffer, but because I needed to know if she'd lie again. I wanted to see if she'd finally admit the truth. But all she kept saying was, "Please call me. Please. You're freaking me out. This isn't like you." That part made me laugh. This isn't like you. As if she ever noticed what I was really like. as if she hadn't spent the last year reducing me to a background hum in her own life. She couldn't describe me beyond, Meryl's nice. Quiet. He helps with the dishes. That's who I'd become to her. Helpful. Not loved. Not wanted. Just convenient. Well, now I was inconvenient. Now I was gone. And that note she still hadn't mentioned? I knew exactly when she found it, because voicemail number 12 was different. It came at 2:17 a.m. Her voice was shaking. I could hear her pacing by the echo, like she was walking in circles around the kitchen, maybe holding that folded paper, maybe rereading the words I bled onto the page 3 nights earlier. Meryl, I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know you felt like that. I just thought. She trailed off. Dead air. A sniff. Then, I didn't mean for you to see those texts. There it was. Not, I didn't do anything. Not, there's no Colby. Just, I didn't mean for you to see. She'd built an entire house of lies, and now the windows were finally cracked wide open, letting her own words scream back at her. She hung up before the voicemail cut off. And still, I didn't respond. I stayed quiet, because I realized something sickeningly powerful. Silence hurts louder than shouting ever could. She was unraveling, voicemail by voicemail, hour by hour. And I hadn't even started the real part yet. Because Colby? He wasn't just some abstract stranger anymore. I'd done my research. And what I learned next about him, and her, would change everything. So here's what I didn't expect. After days of disappearing, of silence, of hearing her unravel through voicemails and late-night texts that I refused to answer, I finally did something I hadn't done since this all started. I opened my laptop. Not to write her back. Not to check our shared accounts. I opened it because I wanted to know who Colby really was. Not just a name. Not just a wrist and a photo. I needed more. She had once tagged him in a story months ago, back when I didn't care enough to notice. He was some business guy, real estate and consulting, fancy-sounding title with no real meaning. But with a name like his and a little reverse image searching, it didn't take long to find his LinkedIn. His company. His face. And right there on the sidebar of one of his recent profile photos, barely visible, but enough to punch a hole in my chest, was her. Trina, my wife, standing beside him at a networking mixer in Nashville, wearing my blazer, the one I loaned her that weekend because she said it looked cute, oversized. She was holding a drink, smiling like she wasn't married, like I didn't exist. That was 2 months ago. That was before the gaslighting, before the outbursts, before the text about the meltdown. She'd already started erasing me back then. But here's the part that shattered what little numbness I had left. Colby was married too. Not just married. Publicly. As in, wife in bio, wedding anniversary posts, 2 golden retrievers level married. And guess who found out recently? His wife. I didn't reach out to her. I didn't need to. Because she reached out to me. At first, I thought it was spam. Some random Facebook message request from a woman named Tessa. But then I opened it. Short. To the point. Chilling. Hey, I think your wife and my husband are sleeping together. If I'm wrong, I'll delete this and never bother you again. But I don't think I'm wrong. My hands were shaking. Not because it hurt, but because someone else finally saw it too. We messaged for hours. Compared dates, times, photos. And it all lined up. The hotel she lied about being too tired to go to with me? She went the next night with Colby. The weekend she claimed she was visiting her sister in Phoenix? She flew to New Orleans and met him for a real estate expo. They weren't even discreet. They thought we were too dumb, too loyal, too nice to ever notice. And maybe we were. But not anymore. Because Tessa had already filed. And she offered to send me screenshots, ones my wife had deleted from her end. I told her no. I didn't want to see my wife in another man's arms again. I'd seen enough. Instead, I told her exactly one thing. Let's make sure they never see us coming. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not because I had a plan, but because for once, she was the one being watched. The last message she ever sent me came exactly 11 days after I disappeared. It just said, "Can we talk?" No explanation. No apology. No details. And by then, I had nothing left to give her. I didn't answer. I didn't even open it. I left it there, just like she'd left my birthday cake untouched and my heart in limbo for months. The difference was, I learned to live without her. The best part? I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to blow up her world. Life had already taken care of that for me. Tessa, Colby's wife, served him divorce papers during a dinner meeting at his firm. The fallout was immediate. According to her, Trina showed up at Colby's apartment the next night, only to be told he wasn't looking for anything serious. Imagine that. Wrecking a marriage for a man who thought she was temporary. I'll be honest, when Tessa told me that, I didn't feel glee. I didn't feel triumph. I felt free, because somewhere in all this chaos, I realized something she never did. Loyalty isn't weakness. Gentleness isn't failure. And disappearing wasn't giving up, it was choosing peace. I moved in with my brother for a while after I left. Spent some nights sleeping on a lumpy couch, working remote, eating cold Chinese takeout, trying to figure out what came next. And slowly, like a fog lifting, I started remembering who I was before she shrunk me down to a doormat with a paycheck. I got back into hiking, bought myself a proper used car, signed up for one of those adult intro guitar classes, even joined a low-key trivia team at a dive bar where nobody knew I was the guy who used to cry in grocery store parking lots. And somewhere between laughing again and learning how to be alone without being lonely, I met someone. I didn't expect it. I wasn't looking. But there she was, just a kind, quiet person who didn't need me to prove anything. She listened. She asked about my favorite movies. She never made me feel like I was too much for having feelings. It's not some fairy tale ending. But it's real. It's slow. It's gentle. It's honest. Trina, on the other hand, I heard through a mutual friend she's figuring herself out. She tells people I left her without warning, that I was too sensitive, that I overreacted. That's fine. She can tell whatever version she needs to survive in. But I know the truth. And so does she. Every time she reaches for her phone and realizes I'm not coming back. Not to talk. Not to fight. Not to fix it. She burned the bridge. I learned how to swim. And I never looked back. She wasn't supposed to see it. That drawer was always locked. Always. She never asked about it. Never showed interest. Probably because she thought I had nothing worth hiding. After all, I was just the boring, routine husband who always washed his dishes, folded his socks, and paid the bills on time. But that morning she opened it. I don't know how she got the key. I don't even know why she went snooping. Maybe she was bored. Maybe she was looking for something she could use against me. I'll never know. What I do know is this. When she opened it, she found everything. The USB drive. The folder labeled November. The photographs. The notarized documents. My passport. The bus ticket. The scanned receipts from motels she never stayed at. The phone she didn't recognize. The one I bought just for tracking her trips. She didn't even try to be subtle. I watched her through the hallway mirror. She sat at my desk, mouth half open, flipping through the pages like she was reading someone else's life. She looked pale, shocked, scared. I stood in the kitchen doorway, holding my coffee, waiting for her to lie, waiting for her to ask something, anything. But instead, she slammed the drawer shut and walked out the front door. No eye contact, no words, just slammed it and left. That was my answer. 10 minutes later, I was gone. I already had the backpack ready. I knew this day might come. I just didn't expect it to happen over breakfast. I grabbed it from behind the dryer, tossed in the second phone, and left through the back gate. No goodbye, no note, no scene. I left the house like I was just taking out the trash, and never went back. Now, here's the twist. I didn't leave because I was hurt. I left because I had won. For months, maybe longer, she'd been living two lives. One with me, the loyal husband she kept on a leash, and one with him. Him, her business consultant. The one who left heart emojis on her Slack messages and paid for that spa trip she didn't realize showed up on our joint credit card. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I documented. And then I made her look in the mirror. Because inside that drawer, along with all the proof, I left her a single sticky note. Just 5 words, written in my neatest print. Now you know I know. I've heard from mutuals that she's unraveling. First she said I abandoned her. Then she changed it to, he's having a breakdown. Now she just calls everyone and cries. She even emailed my boss. She's looking everywhere, except inside herself. She doesn't know where I am. She doesn't know how I paid for it. She doesn't know the full extent of what I uncovered. But she knows one thing for sure. I saw her for who she really was. And I made sure she'd never forget it. The weirdest thing about disappearing is realizing how easy it is. 1 minute you're someone's husband, just a guy with a toothbrush in the bathroom and your name on the lease. The next, you're a shadow at the bus terminal, watching people with lives pass you by. I sat on that cracked plastic bench outside the station, hoodie up, phone off, and backpack between my knees, while the morning sun lit up our street like it was just another Tuesday. From across the road, I could see her through the front window. She was pacing, holding her phone, dialing, pausing, dialing again. I could practically hear her breathing from that distance, even though she couldn't see me. I'd always thought she'd react with arrogance, with denial, maybe even with silence. But no, she was unraveling. Fast. At one point, she flung her phone across the room and dropped to her knees like something had physically hit her. That's when it hit me. She thought she was untouchable. She never imagined I'd have the spine to disappear, let alone the patience to collect receipts while pretending to be clueless. But she wasn't crying for me. Don't get me wrong. She was crying because she realized her safety net, me, was gone. The next 24 hours were chaos. Even with my second phone turned off, I still had access to a few things. I watched the joint bank account ping with login attempts. She tried every password she could guess. She called my job. I know this because my former coworker, Miles, sent me a single text. Bro, she's spiraling. Want me to say you died in a kayak accident? I didn't reply. I couldn't afford to. But I laughed. For real. First time in weeks. By that night, she posted a photo of us on Facebook, the one from our 5th anniversary. We were on the coast, smiling, looking like a fairy tale. She captioned it, "Please reach out if anyone has seen Ezra. This is unlike him." A few of her friends commented. Sympathy. Confusion. One of them, a girl she hated, by the way, replied, "You sure? Didn't you say he was emotionally predictable last week?" I screenshotted it. She pulled the post an hour later. I knew this was only the beginning. I had laid out every step of my disappearance with such care. No trail, no loose ends, no familiar transactions. I even left the dog with my sister 2 weeks earlier, claiming he needed medical care she wasn't equipped to handle. She didn't even argue. That's how little attention she paid to the details. She just assumed I'd always be there. That was her first mistake. Her second? Thinking I didn't notice her little changes. Like how she started carrying her phone into the shower. Or how her work trips started aligning with Kyle's Instagram stories. The man was dumb enough to post photos of hotel bars, and she was dumb enough to wear the same blouse in both their pictures. I gave her every chance to come clean. I left questions hanging like loaded weapons in our kitchen. She never bit. She always turned it back on me. Why are you so quiet lately? Is this about that coworker again? God, Ezra, you're so dramatic. And maybe I am. Maybe I always was. But you know what? Dramatic is better than invisible. So I watched her from across the street that day, not as her husband, not as her victim, but as the man who finally stopped begging to be seen. She can look for me all she wants. She won't find the version of me she used to ignore. That guy's gone. And the one watching her through the cafe window? He's just getting started. I wasn't planning on sending anything. I really wasn't. My original plan was clean. Disappear, stay silent, let her choke on the mystery. But then I remembered something she once said, during a fight we had a year ago, back when I still believed fighting meant fixing something. She screamed, "You couldn't handle the truth even if I gift-wrapped it for you." And for some reason, that line crawled back into my brain. So, I decided to do exactly that. Thursday morning, 9:47 a.m., a small padded envelope arrived at the house. She signed for it without checking the return label. I made sure of that. It was one of those anonymous delivery services, totally untraceable. Inside was a simple flash drive. No note. No explanation. Just a label written in black ink. Your choices. On that flash drive were 4 files. The first was a screenshot of her hotel reservation in Seattle. The trip she claimed was a leadership retreat. The guest count said 2. The email used was hers. The confirmation came to our shared inbox. She just didn't know I had set up automatic forwards. The second was a recording. I had attached a mic under her car's dashboard 3 months earlier. During a weekend she told me she was visiting her mom. The recording captured a conversation between her and Kyle in the car. They were laughing about how I'd probably be home folding laundry while they were getting room service in bed. The third was a PDF copy of the bank transactions. All her little gifts to him. The money she transferred to his Venmo, the hotel bar charges, even that massage parlor receipt from Miami. I highlighted each transaction and labeled it, paid with Ezra's income. And the final file? It was a photo. A single image of me standing on the train platform that morning I left. Not looking broken. Not confused. Just calm. Free. The photo was taken by a stranger. I had asked them for help in exchange for a coffee. I wanted her to see me the moment I truly left her life, so it would haunt her forever. I waited. I don't know exactly when she opened it, but by 2 p.m., my backup email got a flood of activity alerts. She logged into everything. Our old Dropbox, the emergency Gmail, even the cloud account I hadn't touched in months. She was trying to find more. She was desperate. Then she called my brother. Left him a 5-minute voicemail sobbing, saying she didn't realize how bad it had gotten and that she just wanted to talk. She begged him to convince me to come back, just for a conversation. Just for closure. Closure? She wants closure? The same woman who told her friends I was emotionally clingy now wanted my permission to stop unraveling. But here's the kicker. It wasn't guilt eating her alive. It was exposure. She thought she had rewritten history, painted me as the quiet, boring husband who just stopped trying. But my little package proved otherwise. It proved I knew, that I had known for months, that I had watched her lie right to my face every single day. She couldn't twist the narrative anymore. She couldn't smear me to her friends, not with those files sitting on her desk like a ticking time bomb. And I didn't even have to say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I didn't beg her to choose me. I just told the truth, silently. And now she's sitting in that house, surrounded by evidence, wondering how long I've been 10 steps ahead. And I'm in a different city, sipping terrible diner coffee, wondering how much worse it'll get for her before she finally cracks. She wanted to be the mystery in my life. Now she's living in one of mine. I always knew it might happen eventually, that she'd get desperate enough to try and find me in person. But I honestly didn't expect her to cross that line so soon. Not after the package. Not after everything I made her relive. I got the call from my sister, Margot, just after midnight. She never calls me that late, unless something's seriously wrong. At first, I thought it was something about Mom. But when I picked up, Margot didn't even say hello. She just whispered, "She's here." For a second, I thought I misheard. "She's where?" I asked, sitting straight up in the motel bed, the sheets suddenly damp with sweat. "On my porch," Margot said. "She's been here for 20 minutes. She's crying, Ezra. Like, full meltdown." I didn't even know what to say. "She asked for you." Begged, really. I could picture it. My wife. No. Ex-wife in every way but legally. Standing in the same place we used to park during family barbecues. Crocodile tears soaking her cheeks while she wrapped herself in that manipulative little voice. The one that used to make me feel like the villain every time I asked a simple question. "What did she say?" I asked, bracing myself. Margot hesitated. Then she said it. Word for word. She told me, "Please, if you love Ezra, if you care about him, you'll tell me where he is. I'm scared he'll do something to himself. He's unstable." That was it. That's what she went with. Not remorse. Not the truth. Not even confusion. She went straight to the lie that could destroy me. That's when something inside me flipped. She was setting the stage. Building the narrative. If she couldn't reach me, she'd discredit me. If she couldn't find me, she'd make others think I was dangerous. Not to her, but to myself. The most cowardly form of character assassination. The kind that makes people question your every action. I know how this works. I've seen it before. I told Margot not to say a word. Not about where I was. Not about how I was doing. Nothing. Just to go inside and lock the door. She did, reluctantly. She loves me, but she's never been good at confrontation. I could tell she felt bad, but I also knew this wasn't her burden to carry. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I laid awake in my new apartment, a place so empty it echoed, replaying that sentence in my head over and over. He's unstable. You know what's really unstable? Cheating on your husband for months while pretending to love him. Whispering promises into one man's ear while sleeping in another man's bed. Gaslighting someone who would have taken a bullet for you. That's unstable. But no one sees that part, do they? They see the guy who vanished. The one who snapped. The one who left a house, a marriage, and a life behind without saying a word. That guy's easy to paint as broken. But I wasn't broken. I was finally free. And just when I thought she couldn't sink any lower, she did something that truly scared me. The next morning, a new social media profile popped up, fake name, but her photo. She posted a story with our wedding song playing in the background, showing old pictures of us, captioned, "Please come home. We can fix this." I don't know who it was for. Her friends? Her family? Maybe even me. But what sent chills down my spine was the second post, 20 minutes later. A blurry image of my sister's porch, taken at night. My sister's address geotagged. She was sending a message. If I didn't come out of hiding soon, she was going to keep escalating. She was going to pull everyone in until someone slipped and gave her what she wanted. I thought disappearing would end the chaos. Turns out, it only gave her room to perform. She wanted the stage. Now she has it. And I'm watching her burn everything down from the balcony of a life she can no longer touch. I was sipping burnt coffee at a tiny laundromat cafe when the news came through. An old coworker texted me, totally out of nowhere. Dude, why did I just get a call from a detective asking about your mental health? My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone where I was, but I'd been careful. No GPS, no emails, cash only. But I forgot one thing. People who knew me could still be reached. She hadn't found me, but she'd started a whisper campaign. She actually filed a missing persons report, and not the kind that comes from real concern. No, she told them I might be emotionally unstable, withdrawn, possibly even paranoid. Said I left under suspicious circumstances. Claimed I refused to speak to anyone and might be in danger. I couldn't believe it. After everything she did, she was now building a paper trail that made me look like the threat. But she made one huge mistake. She listed our breakup date, the day I walked out, as the day I vanished. But she didn't know I had proof I'd already updated my address before then. Bank documents, a notarized lease, a change of address confirmation. So when the detective did his follow-up, what he found didn't match her story. I wasn't a missing person. I was a man who left his wife with a trail of proof and a lawyer's number on standby. And just like that, her little concerned wife act collapsed. That night, I heard she got a visit from the police herself. And when they asked why she claimed I was unstable without evidence, and why she failed to mention she'd been cheating, apparently she had a full-blown meltdown on her own front lawn. Neighbors saw it. Cameras caught it. And for once, I wasn't the one who looked unhinged. The world she built to make me look broken? It's starting to crack. I hadn't even thought about her job in all of this. I mean, sure, I knew she worked at that smug boutique marketing firm with glass walls and beanbags everywhere. I'd even visited once. Smiled at her coworkers. Watched Kyle pretend not to know who I was while she clutched my arm a little too tight, like she was trying to keep the illusion intact. But when I disappeared, I figured she'd keep her drama out of the office. I was wrong. I only found out because of a LinkedIn notification. Yeah, seriously, LinkedIn. One of her colleagues viewed my ghost profile, the one I'd locked down months ago. Then another. Then 3 more. All in the same week. And guess what name popped up in my inbox later that week? Chad Withers. I didn't recognize it until I clicked into the message and saw the words. Hey man, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but your wife's been asking around a lot. Like, a lot. Turns out she had gone into full search mode at work. She started telling her team I'd been struggling, asked if anyone had my social media, even pulled the company IT guy aside to help her check some old browser history for a personal emergency. She abused her company access to track me down, and that's when something in me snapped. I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to retaliate. But the second she dragged her job into it, the same place where she flirted with Kyle like it was high school homeroom, I decided I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I sent an anonymous tip to her firm's HR department. It wasn't just about the tracking. I detailed every unethical thing I'd quietly logged before I vanished. The team dinners she billed as client meetings. The flight she expensed but never showed up for. The after-hours Zoom call where she drank wine on camera while bragging about how she knew how to manipulate men. I backed it up with screenshots, dates, timestamps, everything. I wasn't expecting them to act so fast. 3 days later, her company bio vanished from their website. The next day, Kyle's did too. And then I got another email. This one from a burner account, but the tone was unmistakably hers. What did you do? You've ruined everything. I told you I just wanted to talk. Why couldn't you just talk to me? That was rich. Talk to her. After she tried to report me missing, dragged my sister into it, stalked me online, and used her job as a hunting ground? She lost control, and now she was losing everything else. I never meant to destroy her career. Honestly, I didn't. But I also never meant to marry someone who thought loyalty was optional and manipulation was love. Actions have consequences. She just never thought hers would come back with a name tag and an HR case number. And me? I was already somewhere new. With a new job, new address, new life. She still doesn't know where I am. But now, she knows what it feels like to be watched, exposed, and left to deal with the mess she created. And she's only just starting to realize. I'm not the one who disappeared. She's the one who lost everything. It happened on a Sunday. Rainy, gray, uneventful, until it wasn't. I'd been living in this quiet lakeside town for just over 2 months. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions, where people waved at strangers just because they had hands. Peaceful, boring, perfect. I was walking back from the bookstore with coffee in one hand and a second paper cup in the other. The second one wasn't for me. That was new. Her name was Bridget. She worked in town. I liked the way she laughed without trying to impress anyone. I hadn't told her much about my past, just that I moved here for a clean slate. She didn't pry. I didn't know it at the time, but she, my ex, had been closing in. I guess she'd hired someone. A tracker. Or maybe it was just a digital slip-up on my part. A receipt I forgot to scrub. An email address I forgot to kill. However it happened, it led her straight to me. She was standing across the street when I saw her. I froze. Everything in my body went stiff. She was soaked, her coat sticking to her arms, mascara streaked. She looked like she hadn't slept. Like she'd been unraveling one thread at a time, and now had nothing left to hold together. She locked eyes with me. Then her gaze shifted. To Bridget. To the second cup of coffee in my hand. To the way I smiled. Not like a man hiding, but like a man who had moved on. That's when she snapped. She didn't scream. She didn't cross the street. She just stood there, trembling. Rage and heartbreak competing on her face. Her expression was unlike anything I'd ever seen on her. Not pride, not arrogance, not even guilt. It was shock. Real, visceral shock that I was capable of doing exactly what she thought I never could. Heal without her. She didn't try to speak to me. Instead, she turned, slow, shaking, and walked away. But not before slipping a folded note into the crack of a shop's window frame across from where I stood. I didn't pick it up until 2 hours later, once the rain stopped and the sky cleared. It said, "I don't recognize this version of you." And that terrifies me. No apology. No explanation. Just fear. She didn't fear me physically. No, she feared the reality that her power was gone. That she couldn't crawl back in through guilt or control. That I had rebuilt something, someone, without needing her to see it. She thought I'd always orbit her chaos. She thought she was the sun. But I'd become a different planet entirely, one she could no longer reach. And now I wonder what terrified her more. Losing me, or realizing I'd never been the broken one to begin with. I didn't chase after her when she left that rainy street. I didn't pick up the phone. I didn't check her social media. For the first time in years, I didn't need to. I wasn't curious anymore. That note she left, "I don't recognize this version of you," said more than she realized. Because she was right. I wasn't the man who used to lie awake wondering what I did wrong. I wasn't the husband who begged for crumbs of attention or questioned whether I was too sensitive for not wanting my wife to lie to my face. I wasn't hiding anymore. I had stopped shrinking to fit inside the version of life she made for me. In the days that followed, I thought a lot about closure, what it really means. People think it comes from some dramatic conversation or emotional reckoning, like a scene in a movie. But for me, it came in quiet moments. It came when I walked past the coffee shop where I met Bridget and realized I looked forward to seeing her more than I ever dreaded my past. It came when I caught myself laughing, like genuinely laughing, at a dumb joke someone made at the local bookstore, and I didn't flinch from joy like it was borrowed. It came when I finally deleted the folder. You know the one. The evidence. The screenshots. The recordings. The insurance. I don't need it anymore. I'm not building my new life on top of a wreckage. I'm building it away from it. And Bridget? She knows everything now. I told her the whole story. Every ugly chapter. I laid it all out one evening under the soft hum of string lights on her balcony. I expected her to pull away, to call it too heavy, too much. But she didn't. She didn't pity me. She didn't promise to fix me. She just sat with me in the silence afterward and said, "You don't have to be the person who was left anymore. You get to be the person who walked away." That stayed with me. So no, I didn't get revenge. I didn't take her to court. I didn't blast her online. I didn't destroy her name. I didn't need to. Because the moment I walked away without a word, I took back something she thought she'd erased. Myself. And she'll spend the rest of her life wondering how I did it so silently. But me? I'm too busy living to answer.